Good to have you here, my friend. And could you briefly share who you are and what you do for the people listening?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. It's good to see you as always. So my name's Nicholas Whitaker. I actually have two different businesses. I'm a coach mainly for tech workers who are in career transition and trying to chart out what their next stage of their career and life is going to be like. Particularly working with them on time, energy, and attention and helping them reclaim that so they can really build something beautiful with their life. That's one business. I have a whole other business that I also have, which is a nonprofit. It's called changingwork.org. And we are an education and information and knowledge sharing organization really focused around conscious leadership and conscious business and helping people live and work more consciously.
It's your beautiful mission statement.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Amazing, amazing. So before we started working together, like what was one of the main drivers or the main decisions to start working together on your LinkedIn game?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I saw your LinkedIn game and was impressed by it. For a long time, I had been using LinkedIn, I think, like most people do. I was working in big tech. I was still in corporate, and I would mostly share Harvard Business Review articles or reshare other people's posts from time to time. Or every once in a while, I might like shake fists at clouds and talk about what I was seeing within the ecosystem that I felt was wrong or needed to be improved in some capacity. But I didn't really have a strategy in mind. And I really didn't understand how LinkedIn worked from the standpoint of a creator. So when I started to launch my business a couple of years ago fully and realized that LinkedIn is going to be where most of my clients are going to live. Again, people who are in career transitions, they're probably on LinkedIn looking for support for those transitions. So I knew that LinkedIn was a source for this. I just didn't know how to really leverage LinkedIn in a way that would allow me to get into conversations with people and to hopefully move them further down the experience with me so that they would eventually, hopefully, purchase a coaching package with me or work with me. So I came across your work and I was like, wow, I really like particularly the way you formatted your posts. They were easy to read. They were engaging. To me, gave a lot of clarity in terms of how I might be able to present my work in a more organic way, just telling stories and engaging with people in meaningful ways and providing some sort of value there in that exchange.
I love that, man. And I think a beautiful transition, as you said, like the old way of LinkedIn versus the new way of LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still share HBR articles once in a while, but it's not like I used to do.
Yeah, it's
Um,
part of the strategy right now.
That's right. Yeah. And I think the strategy is the biggest thing. Before I
Yeah.
think, I probably tried for about 6 months just posting things randomly. And I was doing it from like a structured standpoint to try to figure out like what's working and what's not. But I didn't know what to measure. I didn't understand
Mm.
really even how the algorithm worked on LinkedIn. And I was really chasing how many engagements, how many impressions that I was getting, which is an okay measure of success. But what I come to find out after working with you for a while, it was like really less about the impressions. It was much more about the engagement that I was having and the relationships that I was building. So as I started to reformat the content, the how of what I was putting out
Mm.
there, what I was noticing, the more stories I told, the more personal it was, the more helpful it was, the more likely it was that I was going to get people reaching out to me in the DMs and starting conversations. And that was a big jump off point for me. It never occurred to me that DMs was a place to be having conversations with people that might lead down into a potential sale at some point. So the structure, the format, and also the strategy around when to post, how often to post, the the reasons behind posting, and then getting people into DMs and engaging with them in organic ways was a pretty big game changer for me.
I love that, man. So you basically broke down the whole system already, like
Yeah,
how the content leads to the DMs, to the conversions into clients, right?
that's right. Yeah, and I think the big takeaway for me is it's so much about relationship building. And most of my clients, the people who actually end up getting on calls with me, are not the people who are engaging with my posts. They're not the people who are liking and resharing and commenting on my posts. Often because of the way that I'm posting, it's really uncomfortable for folks to say, oh, yeah, I
Mm.
endorse that. But what it does do is it resonates really deeply with them in terms of their own lived experience. And they say, oh, this person understands me. This person has gone through what I've gone through, and they've helped other people through that. So they'll get into the DMs on the down low and message me and be like, hey, I've been following you for 6 months. I love what you're putting out there. Thank you so much for being a voice on these topics. What is it like to work with you?
That's amazing, right? Like using the content to as like a magnet to you put out to attract those qualified and interested people.
That's right. That's right. And I think it was you that early, I mean, this is 2 years ago. So I've been following Jesse for a while and working with Jesse on and off for quite some time now. I think one of the things that you had mentioned to me that really kind of shifted it for me, definitely the strategy and definitely the relationship building, but this idea that I'm not trying to pitch or sell people, right? It's not about me trying to sell. It's about me trying to serve and serve them powerfully. And getting into those conversations and building those relationships from a place of service, as opposed to how am I going to get this person to buy from me? Just that energy that comes into those conversations dramatically changed the way I was engaging with people. It took a lot of the pressure off. And I think it was a bit of a shift as opposed to trying to go out and find clients or even attract clients. It's more of a standpoint of how do I create clients out of relationships that I'm building with them, using the social content I'm putting out there and the relationships I'm building with the DMs.
Love that, man. Love that in terms of the relationship buildings. Amazing stuff. Do you mind, like, I know you touched upon it a little bit, but do you mind sharing some of the specific results that you've achieved since we work together on the LinkedIn stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I measured in a couple of different ways. I think for the longest time I was measuring it in dollars, right? Like literally how many clients am I booking calls with and then closing them on, which I think is an important metric. Most people think about it in those terms, right? If I work with Jesse, I learned this system, I learned this process, it's going to earn me X number of dollars a month. And that's totally reasonable. We live in a capitalist society. We need to make money. We need to be in business. But I almost think that's a less important metric for me. What's most important for me is how more aligned I am in what I'm sharing and the type of work that I want to do with clients and the type of clients that are reaching out to me and booking calls. That to me was almost the more important metric, because I can get on thousands of calls with people and they can all be the wrong type of client. People I don't want to work with, people that aren't ready to invest in themselves, people who aren't ready for transformation. So having a system in place that is constantly putting out quality content that attracts the right type of people, getting them into those DMs and pre-vetting and pre-verifying whether or not they're the right type of client. And if they're not, great. It's a referral opportunity. So I can ask them, do you know other people that are interested in these types of things? Those to me are the more important metrics, but you probably want specific. So, on average, between $10,000 and $20,000 more per month after I started adopting these processes from what I was doing previously. The amount of time that it requires for me to be able to achieve that has dropped dramatically. So as opposed to spending 3 to 5 hours a day on LinkedIn trying to get the algorithm to work for me, I spend maybe 45 minutes at the top of every day commenting and engaging on other people's posts, posting my own content, and then engaging with the comments and the folks that reach out to me from that standpoint. For someone that has 2 businesses, I can't really spend or invest more than that much time on LinkedIn because it just doesn't scale. So for me, it's more about the time savings and the efficiency and the systematic process and the actual dollar amount. I'd say the other big stat that I think is really useful for me is like how many touch points does it take? Excuse me. One of the other big things I think is important for me is like how many touch points does it take between the first moment that I engage with a potential client and how long it takes until I actually get their credit card and get a payment from them. And that overall amount of times has been reduced dramatically too. My theory on this is because the content that I'm putting out there helps them self-select. So instead of me going out there and having to constantly talk about what I do and how it works and like what offerings I have, they're already doing that research for me. Like they're already sussing it out through the testimonials that I share, through the case studies that I share, through the insights that I've shared of my own experience and the clients that I've worked with. So by the time they're with me on the DMs, it's really just kind of a brass tacks question at that point. How long is it going to take? What are the outcomes I can expect? And what's the package look like? What does it cost to actually work with you?
Man, that's amazing. It's like, if I wouldn't be using content myself, you would have sold me on that system.
Yeah,
Like
really good
that sounded
program. It's called Authority Figures. So check it out.
no, but for real, that sounded amazing, man. And I really vibe what you said with like the alignment part. Like the content you put out is just a filter. It's like, hey, can I work? Do I see myself working with this person? Yes or no? And I think in an era where trust on the internet is it's tough to get, like using content and building a personal brand as you did, I think is amazing because, like you said, now the people that are the best fit for your offering and for your service, they just knock on your door, like, hey,
Yeah.
tell me more about this, how this works.
Yeah. And not only that, Jesse, not only are they knocking on my door, but they're referring other people. And I think that's one of the really interesting developments that I've experienced over the last couple of years. You mentioned the word trust. And I think, I'm in a very saturated industry. There are millions of people out there that call themselves coaches. There's more every day. I think it's a really crowded field. So how do you differentiate yourself? How do you stand out? How do you show somebody, not just tell them, but how do you show them what you're capable of and what you can do for them? The vast majority of people that I get on calls with, the first few things that I hear from them, I've been following you for months. It sounds like you've been through exactly what I've experienced, and you know the industry and you know what it's like to be in these environments of big tech. It's a shortcut and it helps them get right to the point, right? And I think that's the really big takeaway is as I've been talking more and more, people call it niching down, but I think really what it is speaking more and more directly to the types of folks that I want to work with. It already builds that trust before I even get on the call with them. And then it's just about reinforcing that trust. And it starts at the earliest stages of that conversation. Like I'm not immediately going to reach out to somebody and just drop my rates and drop a package on them. Like that turns people off immediately. So it's about showing up with curiosity. It's showing up in an engaged way, in an honest and high integrity way that at those earliest stages shows them what I'm about and what it's like to work with me.
I love that, man. That's so good to hear. If you, I would say, you have to define the program or the coaching in 3 words, what are the first 3 words that come to mind?
Of my coaching or of the coaching that I did with you?
Yeah, the thing that we did together.
Yeah, so the work that we did together, if I were to boil it down into 3 words, I would say strategy, execution, and measurement. Those 3 things work in conjunction with each other. The strategy gives you a framework and a step-by-step way of approaching things, which honestly, and Jesse, you probably scoff at this a little bit, I've modified it and tweaked it over time, right? But I've made it work really, really well for me. So it gives you this really good foundational strategy to start with. From there, what was the second thing I said?
You said strategy, execution, and measurement.
Yeah, so strategy. From the second one would be execution. Like, how do you actually go about putting these things into practice consistently over time? I just recently downloaded all of my LinkedIn posts over the last 2 years. I have nearly 500 posts that I've shared in 2 years. That would not have happened if I hadn't worked with you 2 years ago and set myself up with a system that allowed me to repeat it over time consistently. And that's where that third piece comes in. So strategy, execution, and the measurement. Well, what's working? What gets the most attention? What attracts the right types of people? Are there certain words to use versus other ones? When things go viral, how do I repurpose that content and use it again and again and again so I don't have to create another 500 posts? I can just repurpose from the library that I have already. Yeah. All that stuff together creates a very approachable system that even somebody like me that's running 2 businesses, can do that in 45 minutes or less per day.
I love that, man. I love that. Results, but time efficient.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. Finally, what would you say to someone perhaps in a similar position like yourself from a similar industry? What would you say to them considering joining the program or working with me on their LinkedIn game?
Yeah, well, what do they say? If you want to go far, go with somebody else. If you want to go fast, go by yourself, right? And I don't know if that actually really applies in the modern digital era. What my experience is that, sure, I'm smart. I worked in marketing. I've done business before. I could figure all these things out myself. It's going to take me a long time to do that. because the algorithms change all the time, the strategies change all the time, and it's not my core business. My core business is being a coach and being a founder of a company. Working with somebody like you who knows marketing, knows the ecosystem, knows how these things really operate, shortcuts you massively to greater success. And it creates a framework of trusted advising, right? I don't know how many times I've reached out to you randomly over DMs and just asked you a basic question about what's going on, and you're always there to support. So when I look for partners, when I look for contractors or vendors to work with, first and foremost, I'm looking at, can they deliver, right? Can they actually deliver on what they're promising? Are they high integrity? And how do they actually operate their business? Is it being operated in a conscious way? And time again over the years, you've shown me that over and over and over again. So I would say, like, if you're in a position like I am and you're looking for support and you know you don't have the time and the resources to do this stuff yourself, talk to Jesse, get yourself a system in place, learn how to execute it effectively, and understand how to measure the right things to move you forward in your business. And you'll probably end up like I did, just finding a really good friend out of the relationship.
Amazing, man. Amazing. I love how you concluded, because I see that as well. Like, I think this it's a very strong like virtual friendship that we've created over the course of LinkedIn. So thanks, man. Thanks.
My pleasure. Yeah, and I hope it keeps going for many years to come. I'm excited for your success. It to me is an example of what people can do. And it's encouraging to me. It's exciting. And I don't do referrals. I don't often do referrals, and I don't often do reviews for people. But every time you've asked me to do a review for you, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because you saved me time, you made me money. And I just appreciate the way you do business. I want to support it.
Amazing, man. Well, likewise. Perfect. Thanks so much for your time, my friend. And this was awesome. Awesome hearing from you. Thank you.
Yeah, always good, Jesse. Thanks a lot.